next is remove the rear wheel. I want to remove this sprocket and replace it with a new one. And I'm thinking while the wheel is off, I might as well put new tires on it. And we'll do that for the front as well. Okay, rear wheel removal. We've already loosened the axle nut. Always make a note of where your spacers are if you have any, and also what direction they are, so that when you go to put it back together, you can put it all the way you found it. Alright, let's get this guy out of here. Blows here, soft blow. Okay. And here you have the rear wheel with the spacers. So on the sprocket side, yeah, all that's gonna have to be cleaned up. See, there's a ABS ring here, and this is the side and how it goes for that spacer. So just like on the Yamaha, the BMW rear brake caliper, it rides on a boss on the inside of the swing arm, and here's a corresponding slot. So when you put the rear wheel back on, this guy has got to go in there just like that. And actually, I like this one a little bit better than the Yamaha. The fit is a bit more positive engagement. It's on the Yamaha, I can kind of slop around a little bit, and it's really finicky to get in. So we'll see what this one's like putting it back in. To take the opportunity to really degrease and clean everything in here. It's not terrible, but I like to keep everything good and clean, so we'll do that. A helpful tip, if you're going to have your wheels off for an extended period of time, like I'm sort of planning on doing, you know, I got to take my wheels to the shop and get the tires mounted, and there's some other maintenance type things I want to do. A good tip is take your spacers off to keep them with your axle, and put them in with the orientation that they are when they go back on the bike. So the axle in this case goes this way. I'm going to take this spacer off and put it over here, and I'll do the same for the other side, for the sprocket side. That way there is no question next time you go to put this thing back on that it's in the exact same orientation. No more questions. You don't have to worry about it. See how nice and neat this is? You'll be thanking yourself later. Alright, next I'm going to use an electric impact to take these sprocket nuts off the studs. There's 5 total, and they are 18 millimeters. Okay, now with the rear sprocket removed, let's check out the condition of the cush drive. I'm also inspecting the bearings. Give it a little axial movement. I don't hear any clicking. I don't feel any rough spots. Okay, important note, in the back of the cush drive, or the drive area for the sprocket, is a spacer, and it is captive. Okay, that's good to know. So this won't go flying out on you. So it's captive to this assembly, but you will hear some of that. Okay, now back to the bearing. Bearing looks very good. Seals intact. The cush drive is cemented into the wheel. I don't know how I feel about that. Guess that might be factory. I'll have to check that out. Just don't want to lose these, that's all. Here's a comparison with the new sprocket to the original factory sprocket, just to see some of the condition. And again, the rear sprocket wasn't terrible, but if you look closely at the tips, if you compare that to the replacement, you can see how much more pointy they are. And that has everything to do with the wear of the chain. So what you find out with sprocket wear, especially in steel sprockets like these, is they can last quite a long time. They can last you anywhere from 40 to 40,000 or more miles, actually, you know, if you keep up with your chain. Because what's happening is the distance between the links in the chain are stretching over time. What's not stretching is the pitch between the teeth on these sprockets. So you can adjust your chain to get better tension, but as that chain is going around on the sprocket, the distance between those rollers is getting larger, which means it's going to engage on you know, farther up and up on the tooth till you get wear that looks like this. And you'll see other types of wear where the tooth is no longer symmetrical, and that has everything to do with the chain condition. So with a good chain that isn't stretched or replaced when it is becoming stretched, you will see a lot of life left in steel sprockets. Aluminum sprockets are a whole nother topic. You know, we can talk about that at some other point, but for now I'm going to be sticking with steel for the BMW. While I got this drive off, I want to clean it as well. I want to degrease it all. It's an easy time to do it, so let's go ahead and get that done. I'm going to avoid getting any type of cleaner or solvents down on the bearings, just around here on the cast pieces. Okay, that cleaned up really nicely. Whenever I work on a motorcycle, it's my goal to leave things or work on things that are very clean when you're done with it, and that everything you do, everything you touch, you got to think about it. You really got to think about the consequences. This machine will go every bit of 165 miles an hour on the racetrack, which is where I'm going to be riding these things. So not only my safety, but obviously everybody involved who's going to be on the racetrack with me. So think about everything you do and make sure you do it to the best of your ability. And if you are not confident at doing that, or you don't feel like you are qualified, then definitely bring it to a professional, let them do it. But yeah, my goal is to always leave parts as clean as I can, and if nothing else, it'll help you troubleshoot things later. So later, if I find out I have a weird issue with a wheel bearing, I can refer back to my work and say, well, last time I touched it, it was perfect, it was clean. So it'll help you in the long run. Okay, to install the sprocket, I'm going to temporarily put the drive system back on the wheel to help hold it when I torque it, and align the new sprocket. Drop it right down and make sure it's nice and flat. There are, you know, nothing trapped underneath it. And then put your nuts on. 5 total. Alright, next we're going to torque down the nuts for the sprocket carrier. Okay, I like to use a tiny amount of Loctite 243, just a dab, just a small amount on the nuts. So go ahead and torque these up. Follow the specs, use a torque wrench. We need to remove the front wheel as well, get the tire changed. You will need a T45. You have to loosen up these 2 pinch bolts. You're going to leave these pinch bolts in place. As you can see, that's where the it actually acts like the nut for the axle in the front over here. So you leave that one in place and remove the caliper bolts, which are 13mm hex. Front axle on the BMW S1000s are 24mm. And this is a nice tool that you can use. Stick it right in there, and it's a 3/8 drive. Okay, on the BMW, they're a bit different in terms of brake pads. There are 4 individual pads in here. So a helpful trick is when removing the calipers, right before you clear the rotor, give it a little bit of a clock. And what you're doing is you're going to help push those pistons in a little bit, give you a little bit more clearance for the next time you put the wheel in. So we'll show you how that's done here. All right, get out to about right here, and you can feel it turn just a little bit. That's all you need. And then the caliper comes right out. Careful not to scratch your wheel. And here you can see the individual pads. It's a good time to clean all this and inspect the pad wear and replace as necessary. The left side of the bike is the same thing, only difference is we have the wheel speed sensor here. This is what your ABS uses. You got to be cautious not to damage this wire. When you remove the top bolt, this bracket will come loose. Just get it out of the way. You can take this off. I believe it's a T25. I leave it in. And just like we did on the rear wheel, we want to make sure, make note of any of the wheel spacers. So as we can see here, as I turn, the axle's moving, so that spacer in there is going to stay where it is. So that spacer on this side we'll know has to go on the left side of the bike, clutch side. And throttle side looks like it's more or less built into the axle itself, so we'll show you that when we take it out. Now, as you can see on the left side, this nut stays in place. It would probably help to remove the front fender. A little bit easier to pick up and out, but if you're careful, cautious, the wheel will come out no problem. All right, here's another nice tip. Make sure you clean your wheels before you take them to the tire guy. You'll make a lot more friends that way. Just like you, they like working on clean stuff. The beginning, if you keep up on it, let's check on the degreaser. Oh yeah, really starting to break that stuff down. And we will agitate that with a nice brush, and we'll rinse it all out after we do the wheels. Don't forget to get underneath the chain guard, as I did. Yeah, there's a lot of crap up in there.